Внимание, внимание! Внимание, внимание! Уважаемые товарищи! Городской совет народных депутатов сообщает, что в связи с аварией на Чернобыльской атомной электростанции в городе Припяти возникает необходимость провести временную эвакуацию жителей города в пункты Киевской области.
A polluted and contaminated area by radioactive elements over 400,000 hectares in the territory of Ukraine and Belarus has been closed for over 30 years to human race shortly after the Chernobyl disaster. The disaster that reactor 4 of the nuclear power plant exploded in 1986 caused an immense radioactive spill contaminating more than 200 square kilometers across Europe. An area of 30 kilometers radius around the reactor was closed, and approximately 160,000 people were evacuated after a few days of the accident, leaving the established exclusion zone deserted. Core area of accident are still closed for permanent residents due to the high level of radioactive pollution. Today, the main radioactive situation is formed by cesium and strontium. Also, presence of these elements are declining by long time from plutonium. Furthermore, these isotopes will not be dominant by 2056. The presence of these elements will determine the possibility of people resettlement in the future. Before the accident, almost half of the area was a forest. Nearly 80% part of this forest was coniferous, and the rest 20% was deciduous. In the aftermath of the disaster, an area of the forest in the path of the fallout absorbed so much radiation within days. All the trees have turned brown and red, earning it the nickname of the Red Forest. These trees were eventually chopped down and disposed. Paradoxically, the radioactive and abandoned site has become a unique sanctuary for biodiversity for 30 years. Rare animals like red fox, European badger, and over 55 species of mammals are found and documented by scientists. Interestingly, mammals could survive from the radiation, but their bones and skeletons are contaminated. Besides, a large area of the zone is covered by water of a built cooling pond with surface of 22.9 square kilometers. After the disaster, a large volume of radiation fell out and was preserved under the water surface of the pond. The water surface elevation in the cooling pond is controlled by pumping water from the Pripyat River. It is reported that the government will stop pumping water to the pond and decommission it in 8 years, which will lead to the radioactive bottom surface exposed. The accident is categorized as the biggest ever man-made disaster. It has not only caused big consequences environmentally to today and sociopolitically as well. Looking back to Ukrainian history, the territory was regarded as the mother of Russian cities in Kievan Rus era. Then it was fought and taken over by Grand Duchy of Lithuania, Kingdom of Poland, Russian Empire, and Soviet Union followed. Over the past 8th century, it transformed Rome as the center of orthodox movements, then to contested battleground and nuclear-friendly propaganda of USSR. It gained independence after the fall of the USSR in 1991. The Chernobyl accident is believed as the turning point of Soviet Union's collapse because it opened the possibility of much greater freedom of expression, to the point that the system as we knew it could no longer continue. Nowadays, the authority and Western Ukrainian people are eager to have closer interactions with the European Union, while the eastern part has a tangly relation with Russia. In the past decade, protest marches like Euromaidan, Orange Revolution across the country, and wars in Donbass and Crimea in its national border with Russia reflect political tensions in the European continent. However, most resource and disposal service of nuclear power of Ukraine are supplied by Russia. What's more, Russia offers natural gas to a majority of EU countries. Due to strict domestic economy, official agencies have opened a blind eye to the Chernobyl logging to make profits from the polluted forest. A great number of pines are being felled and manufactured into furniture and timber products for sale in Romania and resold to Europe. Ukrainian and European people are standing in a rapidly changing and turbulent socio-political context. The future of Ukraine is unclear, so does Chernobyl. to remediate the radiation and to unveil its embedded power of nature and politics through a lens of landscape architecture, this thesis is designing evolutionary landscape systems, integrating the time and processes flux strategically. These landscapes deal with dynamic, unfinished driving by processes and interrelationships rather than in creating static scenery images. The design strategies include political ambiguity, material remediation, and landscape indicator, applying in three most possible scenarios based on current political environment. These systems are not finalized because of the uncertain processes of changes. All the time, the radiation drop level could be one of evaluation indices of environmental impact. The exclusion zone is an ideal place and reasonable both for nuclear waste disposal and solar energy field, because it is heavily polluted already, not affordable for humans living for 100 years, and its location in a broad and flat terrain with abundant sunshine in spring and summer. Therefore, the first scenario is that the zone becomes an energy device for Europe continental area when Ukraine joined the EU successfully. Normally, it takes 30 to 40 years to establish a permanent radiation nuclear waste dump, and it takes about 3 to 10 years to establish a temporary dump for low to radioactive waste and planting trees on the top to recover the place. By the establishment of nuclear disposal and solar energy field in 2046, the zone can be the radiation waste destination, both serving for domestic demands and the Europe. And it can contribute 15% of electricity for Ukraine together with another 3 national solar parks. The exclusion zone locates in the east end of Polozhye ecological corridor, and it will become a junction point of the connection between Polozhye region and Russia when an environmental reserve state established. Hence, the second scenario is that the exclusion zone becomes a biosphere and a new radioecological state managed by Ukraine and Belarus. In this scenario, more coniferous trees and plants are planted in burnt and bare area for phytoremediation and rotation. A patchwork of ponds and nurseries will be formed to preserve higher radioactive area by changing landform of cooling pond basin and descending water level. It takes at least 60 years to establish a semi-mature forest for radiation remediation and wetland habitats to increase biodiversity. Besides, the scenario is a foundation and fundamental work for the site recovery. By 2056, the average radiation level will decrease to 0.1 mSv per hour in forestation area. A massive radar system called Decaying was built and shrouded as a children camp during Cold War time by USSR to monitor US, and a number of machines and military devices used for liquidation were buried and stored in the 5 stations. In the future, the zone played a role in military competition again, collaborating with Russia when EU goes far right and conservative even collapse. In a scenario 3, the site will turn to be the military site in 40 years later after soil reclaiming. It involves with reconstruction of abandoned railway, roads, construction of soldiers' settlement, and weapon warehouses. A separate peripheral clean area can become training site based on undulating landform, where offer soil for backfill of temporary nuclear dump in early years. Chernobyl is not only a site with polluted soil and contaminated habitat. It is hard to estimate consequences of this catastrophe. It is a tragedy that cost thousands of lives, which has had and will continue to have a lasting impact on the entire world with its unforgettable meaning. The design is based on the processes that should be implemented until 2056. In addition, the design proposal is not aimed for the complete static result. It leaves the possibilities for changes. The proposal either for the development of energy field or radioecological biosphere considers as an open-end design strategy, giving an idea of understanding the further development of the area.